Hi, my name is Kisha Brown, and I am the founder and CEO of Justice Connection. And I am proud to be building the premier lawyer and legal referral service for you. We are better off having access to solid legal counsel. It makes our community stronger, our families more secure. We're able to defend ourselves if anything should arise. It's important to have someone who can relate to you, understand your background, and is culturally competent to handle your issues. Justice Connection is more than just a platform. It is a resource that you can go to for advice, for tips, to connect with the best Black lawyers out there. And so we're building this for you. It's important for us to be able to be competitive in this market. We need to get the word out by connecting with communities, churches, sororities, fraternities, businesses, local and enterprises. It's important for us to stay ahead of the game as far as creating innovative technology. We're set on utilizing the most recent artificial intelligence and natural language processing to make sure that the legal matchmaking process is efficient and effective. We're also looking to build out our team. We want to keep you informed in the Justice Connection family so that you know where to go if and when you need legal resources. Hello. Good evening, Justice Connection family and friends. It's so good to be here with you this evening for the Black Lawyer Roundtable. My name is Kisha Brown, and I am the CEO and founder of Justice Connection. So you saw the video, so you know a little bit about myself. And every week I'll be bringing new attorneys to the stage to just connect, talk, and share everything they know about their particular field. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions, put them in the chat. Let me know. This is all about educating and empowering us in the law. So we want to know what you are interested in hearing about and seeing about and learning about. So tonight's guest, so excited. So one of the things as I'm building Justice Connection that has just been an amazing part of the journey is meeting such talented, dynamic, awesome Black attorneys who do everything, right? We have all the talent we need in our very own community. And so tonight, we're going to be talking about estate planning. And let me tell you, for all of you who may be out there, maybe a little skeptical, perhaps even thinking, oh, I don't know about this. Like, what do I need to know about estate planning? Is it for me? Like, this is over my head. I got a nickel that I rub together with a dime and try to make 15 cents, right? And there is knowledge for us to know in being able to preserve our legacy, right? And not just Jay-Z, who's like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, right? Not just Jay-Z, but all of us can begin to look forward in a way that thinks not only about our own financial wellness, but that of our generations to come. And that generations to come can be your children. It could be designated family. It could be godchildren. Let me tell you, I got like 5 godkids, and I got so many different things with some names with some of them, some names with others. My sister's on some stuff. And so we really need to be thoughtful. Right now is the time. It's 2021. We in the middle of a global pandemic, okay? And one of the things that I've been getting the most requests about recently is wills. People wanting to get their house in order. And so tonight, I'm so excited to have Shari Fleming join and be able to talk to us and teach us really about estate planning. So let me start it off by giving a little bit of background on the legal field and where we are going from here. Shari is, when we go to law school, we go for 3 years and you come out and everybody sort of has the same footing, if you will, right? We don't come out with specialties. It's what we've focused on in law school that begins to teach us. And then when we come out, it's called the practice of law, right? Practice for a reason, because over time we are refining our knowledge. We're refining through our experiences, and lawyers do so much research, so much planning, so much training around developing their expertise. And so without further ado, let me invite and please welcome Attorney Fleming to the stage. Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me well?
I can hear you. I can see you. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm so excited. I knew you were going to do this, and I was like, I hope she does it. And she did it. Please let the people see the full getup. Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Sorry, but that very own that shirt, Our Legacy Matters, right? So that's all. That is Attorney Fleming's own design. That's her wear. That is her message. I love that she's rocking it right here this evening for us. So we're going to just jump in. We're going to jump in. We're going to get to this because there's so much to go over. Okay. So much to go over. And I can only imagine being in your shoes and being in this field and wanting to share all of your knowledge, right? And getting that across the community. So I'm excited that we're here today, that we can do that, break things down. This does not have to be our only conversation, right? Because I really do think this is going to be a topic that folks are going to want to come back to, right? And do some more deep dives on. So I'm not a fan of the take your bio and just read it and be like, da, 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 right? I don't know. It's not my thing. So I would just love for you to share maybe just 3 things, right? 1, just tell folks where you went to law school so they can be like, oh, she legit. She a real lawyer, right? So that's 1. Where you went to law school, what excites you about being a lawyer? Like, why did you become a lawyer? And then we'll dive in. So where you went to law school, what excites you about being a lawyer, and why you became a lawyer. And you can do that in any order.
All righty. Well, hi guys. How's everyone doing tonight? I went to the University of Maryland straight after undergrad. I don't know if that was the best idea because I was so young and just stuck in law school. But I went to University of Maryland. I've been practicing now for 12 or 13 years. I think it's 12. And so what excites me about practicing in law, I have to ask myself that a lot. I would say it is not necessarily the practice of law. Well, let me take that back. It is the ability to actually be the solution for individuals. So the practice of law allows me not to just have good ideas and recommendations, but if a client is willing, I can be the solution and kind of get through the minutia for them. So I think that is it in a nutshell.
Hey, I love that. I love that. So, I had prepared some questions, and there's some basic stuff that we'll get to. It's interesting because, I have tried to have, these types of conversations around estate planning, around wills, because really, as Black folk, we just talking about wills. We're gonna start with that, right? Mm-hmm. You talk about estate plannings, but I'm gonna say wills. That way, everybody's on the same page, and we're gonna grow to estate planning, right? Because that's where a lot of people are, right? When you say, "Oh, have you considered estate planning?" and the response is, "We have a will."
Right? Or what is that? I don't have an estate.
Right. So just even before we jump in, because, we use that language estate planning on the advertisement for this. Can you just give what is estate planning, right? And how is that different than getting a will?
Okay, so a will, obtaining a will is and can be a component of estate planning. Essentially, we're all living. We have possessions, we have income, we give gifts, we receive gifts. All of it, everything that we do with our possessions while we're living. Estate planning is essentially making a plan
Mm,
to transfer and convey all of that property as well as information. Because when I talk about estate planning or legacy planning, it's more, for me, it's more than just a financial thing. It's very much rooted in finance and how we deal with finance, but it's a little bit more than that for me.
yeah.
But it is making sure that we create a plan to transfer our
Mm,
information, our wealth, our possession at the time of death or disability, because one, if not both, are definitely going to happen, right? So if you have everyone works, or everyone has to eat, everyone has income of some sort, and we get the concept of living, right? But we don't get the concept of all of us don't get the concept of estate planning for death or disability, and it is essentially the same thing.
mm, okay. You even just now mentioned the transfer of information,
Mhm.
right? You talked about the transfer of wealth, the transfer of goods. Folks often think, like, okay, a home, right? I own my home. Who's going to get my home? Whose name is on the deed? And we're done, right? And then maybe somebody say, my favorite something, something goes to my favorite niece, right?
Mhm.
Just recently, I had some cousins who were going through, a home, right? So my great aunt had passed, and the cousins were going through the home and cleaning things up and unearthing, right? So much. And in the process of unearthing, they found a plate that had my initials on it. Right. So the aunt had essentially written my initials on this plate, and they were like, do you still want it? Something. And I'm like, yes. Right. So here we have Black folks with their transfer of goods by writing their initials on the back of a plate that somebody saw, right? I love my people. I'm happy to get this plate, but I want you to talk about really in your experience, what you've seen, right? When folks rely on those initials and the back of a plate to transfer anything, right? A favorite something something, or something that's supposedly worth something, right? This is a plate that's supposedly worth something, quite frankly. So, what's been your experience when you meet Black families and stuff is gone awry, right? What's the value? And so where you're just like, dang. Give us a little glimpse of what you've experienced.
Well, I have experienced the gamut. I've experienced personally and professionally the gamut from transfers going well, where there is, some wealth that is being transferred from one generation to another. I've also experienced the estate administration side. So I'm also a college professor. So if I stop and do vocabulary breaks, just forgive me. So
No, I love
estate,
that. Please, please. Because we don't know nothing about nothing. Okay.
so
So all we
estate
need to do
planning is planning before death, and estate administration is what happens when your estate is being administered after death. The probate process, we can think about that. Most of us may be familiar with that process. And
yeah,
so the
maybe.
heartache for me, and the thing that kind of has me on my soapbox, is when I am doing estate administration and I can very clearly see that there were opportunities
Mm,
to plan and to have conversations that are very difficult to have up front, but we don't want to talk about these things, and we're secretive, and we don't want to have certain conversations. Maybe they're uncomfortable, maybe they're triggering. And so, because nothing is done, if the slightest thing could be done up front, when we get to the administration side, we literally see all hell breaking loose, and so much tax being paid, and
wow.
just not a full understanding of what is expected. So if I'm a child and I have one of those parents who say, I did what I had to do while I was here. You figure it out when I leave. I don't care if you fight. Everybody figures it out, right? And so I'm a child that I
Somebody
know.
please capture that quote, because I feel like you just touched somebody's soul who is in the atmosphere. They said, wait a second, is she my mama? Or she? That was a direct quote from an
Yeah,
auntie.
we have some of those, I don't care. Y'all figure it out when I leave. The problem is what the parent doesn't realize is that there is going to be trauma for that child or those children or those heirs for that matter, because it doesn't always have to be a child, to go through the probate process. If anyone has ever gone through the probate process in the state of Maryland, you have to post a bond, which is essentially security so that the debts will be paid. There are certain expenses that have to be paid. Whereas if you had just a simple will, in your will, you can waive bond. Something as small as that you can have a will and waive that requirement, so that even if you don't care what they do with it, in your will put, I don't care what you do with it, but you can waive bond in your will. You can waive the requirement to post insurance, essentially, to have your estate probated. Because here's another issue. In order to get a bond, guess what the person needs? Good credit.
Wow.
Good credit.
You done brought in a whole other aspect. Right. Folks looking around like, so who got the good credit that's gone? Yeah.
So who is the financially responsible one in the family, who is going to be able to post bond, who is going to be able to serve as a personal representative to do a whole heck of a lot of work to resolve the estate and to settle the estate? Who is this person going to be? And you leave your family with that responsibility. And what is heartbreaking to me, what I see that doesn't become a case for me to work on, what I see is heirs just leaving property, leaving it be, leaving the estate, never going through the probate process, just washing their hands of it all together. That's what I see mostly. And that is what's heartbreaking for me. There are actually 2 homes within 10 miles of my home where I happen to know the homeowner, and I happen to know the heirs by law, because there are no wills in these 2 situations. And I'm like, hey, listen, yeah, we knew in both cases that the parent, both actually in both situations, the parents had cancer, 2 separate families, but similar situations. And so we knew that they were getting sicker. We knew that things were happening. And because I knew them, I'm jumping in and I'm researching. I'm like, hey, you should consider this and you should consider that. But again, I can't press the issue because you're already going through watching your loved one lose their life, slowly slip away. That's already enough. So I don't want to press the process, but I am, again, doing things behind the scene, trying to get myself ready to say, hey, I just want to step in and help. And in both situations, the heirs simply said one could not get along with the siblings to work it out, because they all of the siblings would be entitled. They could not get together to work it out, and they just all siblings just left it. The other one just said, you know what, this is too much. Maybe in a year or 2, I'll deal with it. And I'm like, okay, but there's consequences and delay, but all right. And what I see now are 2 properties that I pass by every day to go to the supermarket, or to, go to my house of worship, or go wherever, that I know are not in the process of being transferred, and most likely will not be transferred. And so what will happen is, over time, you're going to have the government step in and condemn the property, take the property and probably sell it.
Have you?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And so, I have been able to see these things happen over the course of time. And so if I can get to a place where I can educate individuals to take small steps in planning, or maybe, you don't plan, but the next generation, just equip the next generation with the information so they can know what's coming down the line, so they can be prepared, because we all can't control what the generation before us does. We have no control over that. Yeah. But what we can do is kind of buffer ourselves.
I want to have control over them, though. Right? Can't we? Is there a way you don't have a secret sauce that you've developed that's like, here's how you get control of?
The secret sauce is letting it go. I'm actually in the middle of caring for adult parents and children. I am right in the middle. And the secret sauce is letting the grown kids, and my in-laws and my parents hate it, but I'm like, you guys are grown kids. Yeah, you're just like extra kids. Letting the grown kids just do what they want to do, because you can't control. You can plead and you can say, make these decisions now. And you can, but you can't control them. I've worn my folks down a little bit, so they've gotten their stuff in order, but I see it all the time where people are just like, I can't. I have a young lady who's caring for a friend's grandparent, a friend's, not even their biological grandparent, a friend's grandparent, and they have oversight. And that is because the actual grandchild is like, I can't do it. I'm done. And so those are the unique relationships, I think, that you find in communities of color that you may not find every place else, where we have community of people who jump in and help us, do things and care for us. And so because of those unique relationships, the law doesn't recognize those relationships at all. So because of those relationships, we do need to plan to make sure that our desires actually come forth.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Oftentimes we don't really acknowledge and, quite frankly, applaud the work that we do in spite of, regardless of. We haven't had the tax code and everything written in a way that reflects, right, our community and the way that we operate, right? Because we just step up. Right? We step up, and oftentimes we're caring for relatives one way or the other, and there isn't a plan, right? There isn't a plan. You mentioned probate, right, a couple of times, and I just want to take a step, because that word often comes up. And how does probate fit into play when someone passes and there's that property?
So when someone passes away, will or no will, their estate will go through probate. The will just gives, and just so I'm clear, so everyone knows what a will is, it is a last will and testament. And in your will, you are giving direction to an appointed person. In Maryland, we call that person a personal representative. You're giving direction to that person as to what you would have done when you're no longer here. So if I have funeral expenses and someone has to pay money, go ahead and reimburse them, because in a very practical matter, the funeral is going to come before you actually go to court to probate the estate, right? So if I have funeral expenses, go ahead and reimburse whoever paid for the funeral. If there are taxes to be paid, I want them to be paid a certain way, okay? And so going through the probate process is having that representative essentially work through transitioning or transferring all of your assets from your estate, which if you were living, it wouldn't be your estate, it would be you. But because you're no longer living, you now have this thing called an estate. So everyone makes it a grand term. It's not a grand term. It's not a grand term. Take all of the fluff off of it. Okay.
Right.
It is
a little bit of fluff, because then we feel like, girl, I got an estate.
Well, put the fluff on it. Either way, make a plan for it.
So let's blow that up. Everybody, when they die, is going to have an estate. Is that
everybody fair? Get this. Here's the great part. This is the selling point. When I do a lot of speaking engagements, because first off, let me say this. I am only licensed in Maryland, so I can only represent Maryland individuals who reside in Maryland and Maryland businesses, right? I literally speak every place because this is a national issue. So a lot of people who contact me can't even be my clients. So I'm doing this just because it needs to be done. Okay. So just so everyone knows that.
Let me tell y'all, that's a Black lawyer thing. Okay. Because she has such love for the community. You hear that? Because everybody oftentimes thinks, right, that, lawyers out there and they getting paid left and right and balling and banking, and for the love of community, right, giving your time and your talent and teaching about
Yeah.
what you're passionate about and what you're called to do. So I just wanted to take a moment to be like, thank you, because that is important, right? It is important that
Yes.
you, especially as a Black lawyer, give your time to the community, and it's appreciated right here, right now.
Yeah, so I wanted to put that out there because I think there's one, there is a misconception. Two, I don't want a whole bunch of people contacting me that I can't help. I'm trying to build up my referral list in other states, but contact me
Don't
still.
worry,
Let me work on it.
Justice
Give a
Connection will
justice
be
connection.
national. Will be national before the end of the year. So we're gonna
Give
tackle
me
all of that.
justice connection. So to answer your question, so will or no will, you will have an estate that will be probated. If you have no will, guess what? You still have an estate plan. That estate plan is called the intestacy laws of the state. So the state of Maryland or the jurisdiction that you're in, they have a plan for your stuff.
Wow.
And where it goes. And they decide based on the statute, based on the law, where your things go. And it's based on whether or not you have children, whether or not you're married. If you don't have children, but you are married, and you have children, but you're unmarried. And so depending on your status, the law will still determine where your property is transferred. So will or no will, you go through the probate process. And the probate process is your representative going to the court and giving an accounting for what you own, the debts that you have, and taking the difference between the two and making sure that those, after fees are paid also, making sure that what's left over goes to whoever the designee is or whoever the beneficiary is. And again, you can identify the beneficiaries yourself, or you can go with the state's intestacy plan. Either way, you're going to have one. The question is, what are you comfortable with?
Wow. I really, and I don't know this myself, I really want you to just repeat what you just said, because I feel like that was so mind-blowing and something that people, that it speaks directly to the point of, y'all figure it out when I'm gone, because I can't be bothered with this. Because people often think that they're transferring that power solely to someone else, right? But if you don't have a plan at all, right, you've actually taken the power away from your loved ones in some regard.
You have, and I want to highlight a couple of myths that when I do presentations, I give a couple of myths that I know culturally we just get wrong. Like, we just get it wrong. And one myth is that if you're married and you don't have a will, that your spouse will inherit everything. No. That's not true. It depends on how your property is owned. Whether or not it's owned jointly or whether or not it's owned by your on your own, how long you've been married, whether or not you have children. So there are a lot of different factors at play. Marriage is not enough for your spouse to get everything. So, and I say that because I meet a lot of couples. My husband and I were going to start a business, and we met with an accountant, and the accountant put this trigger term in my head, and it's called culturally appropriate advising. And essentially he said, look, I can see you. I can see that, you and your husband are Black. And my experience is Black married couples have separate bank accounts that are not jointly owned. And he said, I need to know these things so I can help you plan. And it was mind blowing to me because my husband and I got married. I was in law school. I didn't have a job. We didn't have a nickel or a dime to rub together. So I'm like, why wouldn't we have a joint bank account? But as I began to ask my friends, they were like, no, we keep everything separated. And that is a decision. It doesn't really matter. I could care less which way you go. But I bring that up because all of those things matter when trying to determine where your property is going to go. So people think just because they're married, no, if you have a separate bank account from your spouse, that doesn't necessarily mean that your spouse is automatically going to get the funds out of that bank account. Wow. Unless they're on the account. So there are some things of that nature. Single parents. If you're a single parent, that you can appoint a guardian, and that guardian will have full rights to your child just as you would have them. No, If the other parent is living, that parent's rights trumps whatever. I don't want to say whatever is in your will, but that parent has a legal right to their child, and
Right.
a legal right to do the same things that they did when you were living. The difference is that you can appoint a guardian specifically for the property that you leave to the child. If you didn't want that other parent to have so much access, or you wanted limited access, but as a practical matter, how does that actually work if that is the person who's caring for the child? So that's if that's your situation, you need a plan. You need to work that out up front, because you don't want to leave your child in a space where you have left something to them, but they have limited access to it because the parent doesn't want to talk to the person that you've left as guardian.
Right.
Those things need to be worked out, and they need to be hammered out.
Mm.
So those are some. There are a bunch of other myths, but those are some myths that I lead with, because that's what I see a lot.
Right. Wow. Wow. So that last myth that you touched on actually connects to a question that we got in advance, right? So for those tuning in, please definitely put some questions in the comments. We'll get to those. There is no wrong or basic question, because you see, I'm like, can you repeat that again? You're blowing our minds. Can you repeat it again so everybody could hear it in the balcony? Okay. So, but the question that came in was related to a young woman who had guardianship of her deceased brother's child. So her brother has deceased, and the mother has given the sister, or the sister-in-law, the aunt.
Yeah, I got it. I'm following.
The aunt, but it has given the aunt guardianship. And so the aunt is trying to figure out what are all the things that she needs. The brother did not have a will. And so what is at this point sort of is, but the aunt is trying to protect herself around the child and what the child is entitled to, the child's portion of whatever the father had, and protecting the child, in her opinion, from the mother coming in and out, right? And so that's it's a little bit of custody, but it became sort of an estate planning, I thought, issue, because she was talking about what was left, things that were left by the father for the child.
Yeah, so I think I follow. So I'm gonna try to answer generally. So if we are in fact talking about legal guardianship, because what I find a lot of the times is that we use terms that have legal meaning, but we don't use them with their legal meaning. So if it is in fact legal guardianship, where the aunt has the ability to make legal decisions for the child and financial decisions for the child, then the aunt, whatever the father left, I'm not sure how it was left. Are we talking about custodial accounts? When the father's estate was probated, or are we talking about insurance proceeds where the child is the beneficiary? So I'm not sure how the funds or the proceeds for the child was left. But if the aunt is the legal guardian, then the aunt should have access to those funds for the maintenance of the child, for education, for medical, all of that good stuff. And so I'm not sure what the question is, but how to protect the child. I think one thing that the aunt could do, if she wanted to, is to create a trust for the child. A trust for the child where the aunt can serve as trustee, or the aunt can appoint a trustee. Another trustee can be appointed. It could be a business or an individual. And essentially, any asset that is for the child or any of the child's property can be put into the trust. That actually is a process, a legal process. Anything that the aunt wants to give to the child can also be put in the trust. And that way, the child doesn't, and I don't know the age of the child, so this question is a little difficult because there are a whole bunch of things that are kind of outstanding. But that way, the child is, you're not worried about the child going to the bank and taking out this money on their own. You have money that is protected, or funds that are protected for the child. Also, you're not concerned about the other parent coming in and having access to those assets immediately, because you have a trustee in place whose job is to do what's in the best interest, as the trust states, and as the child's needs are. So that would be, because it's a lot going on there. It's a lot going on there, and so
how situations are. It's always a lot going on.
When it comes to children, depending on how much assets are actually there are a lot of unknowns right now. So depending on how much assets are actually there, depending on the age of the child, depending on if there are any other children that the father had, depending on a lot of factors, I would say the best thing for that aunt to do is look into setting up a trust. That way, the trustee is the person in charge. You can name a successor trustee, and the trust can terminate at some time in the future when a child goes to college or maybe becomes a certain age. And so you protect the child from themselves so they don't have this windfall of money, but you also protect the child's property from everyone else.
Yeah. So does it make a difference? And one of the things that we're getting from this is details matter. Details matter, right? Because and that might change things. Is that true, Shari? If the child is out of state, in a different state than the mother, or
maybe the trust can be created in a state where the child is. There are laws, uniform laws, that are mostly similar in most states when it comes to minors. So there may be some little nuances, but does it matter that the child is in a different state from the mother? It could. It depends on the goal, what we're trying to do. That you go to law school, every fact matters. And that's what we learn. But in the world of estate planning, it is absolutely true. Absolutely true. Just to give an example, I see what I see a lot is I'm an 80s baby. I'm born in the South Bronx in the 80s. Everybody, I come from, I remember in elementary school, only one person in my elementary school, we knew their father was present in their lives. Everyone had a grandparent that was, picking them up. So when we look at culture, we look at things, I am from a generation where we have a lot of grandparent involvement and we have a lot of neighborhood parenting, right? And so there are a number of people that I'm seeing now as we, quickly approach 40, who are caring for, providing the care for the people who cared for them, who is not maybe a biological parent. And so what I see a lot now or especially during COVID, oh my goodness, is parents or caregivers of foster children, caregivers of community children, caregivers of children who are now adults and taking care of them, who would love to leave property to these individuals, but there is no biological relationship. By law, the foster child, the community child, the community that raised that individual, there is no legal connection for those individuals. So a will matters. And that came up for me when you began to talk about the details, is because sometimes when people come to me and they come to my office, or we have my initial call, they say, oh, I want to make sure that my mom gets a will. And then my second step is, okay, well, this is your mom's will. So I need to speak to your mom. I need to determine capacity and competency. And so, bring your mom into the conversation, and because your mom would be the client. And so we then began a conversation, only for me to find out that biologically, that's not your mom. you're not her child by adoption either, but you too have a parent-child-like relationship, but the law doesn't recognize it. And so I then have to, I'm placed in a position where I have to explain these nuances, and everybody gets it. It's never an issue, but it becomes even more clear to them as to why estate planning is absolutely necessary. Because if you are caring for someone who is not your biological parent or not your adoptive parent, and they want to pass assets on to you, they need to designate you. They need to specifically state that. Otherwise, this intestacy plan, you're not included in it at all.
Yeah. No, it's so powerful to hear you talk about it, because it's so important for us to hear the law as it relates to us, our people, our culture, our community, right? And so that we can be knowledgeable on how to navigate it, how to understand it as it relates to us, right? And I think for a lot of folks listening, learning that estate planning, right, is within their reach is a big deal. It really is. It's a big deal. And my hope is that this is the beginning of the conversation for a lot of folks, right? Being able to listen and learn about estate planning, about having a will, and begin to have these conversations. So let me ask you this. This was another question that came in, and it said, if we have, the question was for a grandmother. If the grandmother has property and bank accounts, and that's it, that was what they said, because that's it is just top of mind, right? But they say property and bank accounts, and that's it. Is a will sufficient?
Yes. So I would say, though, depending on what your relationship is with the grandparent, and ultimately what the grandparent desires, because if you were to come to me, the grandparent would be my client, right? That's the person who's doing the planning. The beautiful thing about estate planning, and this is why I don't just mention wills, because there are ways that you can plan that are just as sufficient. You still should have a will, but let's say, for example, you have this same adult that lives in the property with the grandparent. They are the grandparent's caregiver. Doesn't matter if they live with them or not, quite honestly, but let's say they do live with them. Okay. And the grandparent is very clear that upon my death, I want this property to go to you. I don't want it to be split. I'm very clear that I want it to go to you, right? Today, we could draft a life estate deed for the grandparent, where the grandparent has whatever rights that they want. They can have no rights to all of the rights to live in the property for life. And upon death, the property automatically transfers to that grandchild, who is then called what we call a remainderment. All that grandchild would have to do is go to the county land records, file a death certificate, and boom, they're owner of that same real estate. Okay. And so with these bank accounts, depending on the bank account, depending on how much is in there, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a lot of money? Or are we talking about Social Security benefits, retirement? What exactly are we talking about? Depending on the relationship between the grandparent and the grandchild, maybe it's best to have the grandchild on as joint owner. Maybe the grandparent is uncomfortable with that and they don't want the grandchild on as a joint owner. Some banks allow beneficiary designations on bank accounts. Some banks don't. Some banks want the bank account to go through probate, in that you definitely still need a will. But if you have a bank account that allows for a beneficiary designation or payable upon death bank account, if your bank allows that, and you have a life estate deed, the question then becomes, well, what exactly will go into probate anyway? You still need to do probate. You still need to, close everything up. But you have saved yourself a lot of headache and some taxes and some fees.
Hello.
Just by doing that. So I love having a conversation about a will. Also, let me not grandma still needs to have a will. I love having a conversation about a will, but their estate planning is so much more, because it really is looking at your current situation and where you want to go and making the best plan to get there that's financially and emotionally sound for you.
Right. Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. And I think that this is why this is going to be just one of many conversations, because I can think about my own family. So I know everybody else out there is like, how do we get from A to Z, right? Because some folks, I think there's some of us who are interested but unknowledgeable, right? And are really interested in learning so that we can take those proper steps. I tell you, the more I learn, the more I'm like, I need to get me a good estate plan and attorney, okay? Because there are things that, and I talk about, we have some of this on the Justice Connection website. There are some things that you can do by yourself. You don't always need to hire an attorney for everything. That's not what this is about, right? This isn't about convincing everybody every time you look to the left or look to the right, you need to get an attorney, right? But there are some things. There's a difference between the DIY project and, things that you need to have professionally handled, right? And sometimes, quite frankly, the decision, there are a number of steps to consider, and we'll get into that a little bit next week, actually. But there are a number of steps to consider, and one that I talk to folks about is whether it's worth your time, right? Time is money, and money is time. So if it's going to take me 10 times as long to figure something out and to do it and do the research and download the template and get the right one and then copy and paste and then review and do all of that, then as opposed to having a professional be able to guide me through the process, to advise me, to think and consider about things that, quite frankly, I'll never think and consider about because it's not on my radar. Those are things that we have to consider when we think about, like, when it's time to engage a professional, right?
And let me say this about estate planning, which is why I do talk about it in a broader context of just the will. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know what you don't know. And what I find, this is why I started the Our Legacy Matters community that I'll mention a little later. But what I find is that most of us have more wealth than we know. We have more wealth than we can perceive. That we are always, and when I say we, I am talking about people of color, to be absolutely clear. I am included in the we, that we are often looking across the street at the grass, saying that grass is greener than mine, not realizing that we have nice, plush, beautiful grass. And so when it comes to estate planning, while you can draft your own will, while the state does have statutory power of attorney forms that you can pull off from the I believe it's the Attorney General's website. At least that's the advanced directive you can pull from the Attorney General website. While those things are available, when you seek out a true estate planning attorney, because we're all not created equal, someone who does this through and through, what you are paying for is the assessment. Okay, you're not paying for just the drafting of the documents. What you are paying for is the full assessment for someone to assist you in developing a plan that works for you. There are times when people come in my office and we go through the full, kit and caboodle, financial, medical history, goals, what their premier objectives are. And I look at everything and I say, look, you have the choice. You can pay me to draft this will, or you can just, pay me for the assessment and, you can do some of this stuff yourself. And I find that once they understand, most people don't understand what truly goes into planning for the transfer of your estate until after the second consultation with me. And so that is one of the reasons why I started the Our Legacy Matters community, because I want us to really truly understand what it means to own. It's not just about transferring what we have, but it's about owning owning property, owning businesses, investing, accruing wealth over time, and arranging for the transfer of such wealth. So it's really, really important to me that if your viewers take away nothing else, that they should really go into someone's office, an estate planning attorney's office, and say, look, I just want a thorough consultation. I'm not sure if I need a will. I'm not sure if I need a trust. I just know that I'm living well now, and I want to make sure that my property goes to the right people. I want to make sure that the right thing happens. Because again, my experience, more times than not, we own more and we have more than we see. The rest of the world knows it. Marketing is, we spend how much, what is it, $12.5 trillion a year? Every marketing is geared towards us. Everyone knows we have wealth.
That's right.
We don't know it.
That's right. That's right.
We don't know it. So I wouldn't, there are things that you can do for yourself, but if you have never had an assessment done with a financial advisor, you don't even have to go to an attorney. Go to a financial advisor, because you may not have to pay them out the gate, right? Go do it. Get a financial assessment done. See what you own. What is your net worth? A lot of us, we actually have wealth. But because we don't see it and we don't know it, and we're so stuck in it every day trying to figure out how we're paying for school and how we're doing I'm paying for my student loan debts and paying for my kids to go to school. We don't realize how much of that, how much we have. And so I would say get an assessment by a financial advisor. You can meet with an estate planning attorney to kind of go through your financial picture with you. Pay for that. Pay for that assessment. And once you're clear on what you have, and you say, well, I can draft my own will, draft your own will, make sure that you execute it in the right way. Don't spend your time drafting your will and it's not legally sufficient.
Wow.
So we're not going to talk about that.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. You have so blessed us this evening. Just an incredible wealth of knowledge. And I feel like we've really only touched the tip of the iceberg. Really, just really got like the tip of everything that you know secondhand, like nobody's business. We are just really on the precipice of learning about this. And so I want you to be able to please share with everyone how they can get in touch with you, how they can, definitely we've got your website scrolling, but if you have socials, what you do, go ahead and please share those.
So I am Shari Fleming. I am Shari Fleming on all social. I'm on Instagram. I am on Twitter. I am on Facebook. Facebook.com/I am Shari Fleming is my name on everything. Also on Facebook, if you search groups, it's currently a Facebook group, but we're growing a little bit bigger than Facebook. So I'm looking for another platform. The Our Legacy Matters group is awesome. A group that I created just so that there is a place for us to go. Just recently, I have a different topic every week to 10 days. I have a different topic. So we did life insurance and we covered disability insurance. And someone posted in the group, hey, I've had term life insurance all of my life. They're middle-aged. Their children are, off to college, coming out of college. The term is ending. I don't know what I should be doing. Someone told me that I should have had whole life this whole time. I feel like I've wasted my money. And I'm like, hey, first off, I'm not a life insurance agent. That's one. But two, I get it. I completely get it. So, let me connect you with someone that I know. Here are some resources. I can't say what's right for you, term or whole life. I can tell you with the Our Legacy Matters group, what I am trying to get us to do is to build wealth. I am trying to get us to come from renting and temporary just access to actually owning property, to having policies that build cash value. So you don't have to take a loan from yourself. because you have accrued wealth. So I am really trying to change the mindset. I'm trying to share information that I've learned in an educational setting and in practice that I don't remember anyone telling. No one knows anything. I'm like, where's this information shared? Where are these conversations happening? Are they happening at the dinner table? They're not happening at my dinner table.
No, I'm about to take this and send this to everybody, every one of my aunts and uncles, and be like, listen to this, please.
And the reason why I started this group is because when I have clients of color come to me, I find that it takes more time for me to advise just because there are certain things I have to explain that, and, I have to break things down. And that doesn't mean that other cultures, know it, but there is a distinct difference. It's not the first time that they've had the conversation or they've heard the terms. A lot of the time, there's with people of color, we just haven't. Some of these concepts, we don't even know that they exist. Yeah. And it is frustrating for me because I feel like I'm in two worlds. I'm in a world that I work in, but then I'm in a world where the rest of my folks are in. And, I have a choice. I can be split apart. I can become a bridge. I chose to be a bridge. So that's why we have the Our Legacy Matters group. I have these t-shirts, not because I want to make money off of selling t-shirts, but they become a talking point. They become a talk. Well, why are you wearing that shirt? Especially my dad. My dad is the most charismatic person on the face of this earth. He wears the shirt and someone says, Big J, what is that? He's like, oh, this is my daughter's stuff. Yes. This is my daughter. My daughter's a big attorney. And Marilyn, my brother is actually an attorney too. So he throws that in there. My brother's much smarter and makes so much more money than me. But he's like, this is my oldest child and she's trying to get people to write wills, and that he doesn't talk to legacy and estate planning. You get your will, but it becomes part of everyday conversation. And if I got to wear a hat, if I have to get a bullhorn, if I have to send out flyers, if we have to wear t-shirts, if I have to play Jay-Z's Legacy, Legacy, Legacy to get your attention to talk about estate planning, I'm going to do it. So I would encourage individuals to join the group or not. I also, before COVID, I spoke at a lot of churches and a lot of houses of worship because that's where we are, just to kind of get the message out there. And so what I've done recently is that I'm having community conversations. That's what I'm calling them. And they're live Zoom events that I have. Let's say you don't want to join the Facebook group, but you want to join a community conversation. So go to my website, put your name and your information in. You'll get a newsletter where you can sign up and kind of jump in at your leisure. I don't want to bombard people with information. I want to make it available for those who want it, but I want everyone to want it.
I love that. I love that. I'm so excited. I know that folks who are tuned in are like, whoa, this has been awesome. So informative. And you are an inspiration. We are so proud. The community is just so proud of you and your vision. And you're moving forward in that vision and blessing the community as a result. And so please, check out the website. Oh boy, that's a loaded question. Advice for young ladies interested in law. Okay, really quick, study hard. Study hard, right? If you're in high school and you're in middle school, study hard because your books matter. And got to get into college because college is a step before law school, and then study hard in college so you can get into a good law school and be on your way. That actually is a really good topic that I think I might have like a couple of women. Actually, let's do that.
Let's do that because my advice is really different. Yeah. My advice is study enough and network. Yeah. Get out here and meet these people.
That's a whole.
Meet your classmates. Meet some other people. When you're young, go to a community that's different from you. When you're young, you don't always see race, and you don't see all of these things that we see you do see race, but you don't. It's not as as much of an issue for you as it is when you're younger. You can make friends easier because you bond over other things. Make friends with some other folks and keep in contact with them. That's the one thing that I would do differently. I went to a very diverse high school in the Bronx, and I was one of 2 Black kids in the class. I wish I would still know all of those people. I don't know those people anymore. I don't know them. The one thing I would do differently, you have to get good grades, all of that stuff, absolutely. But I would definitely make sure that I stay in contact with everyone, because that's how doors have opened for me.
Yeah. Your network.
Yeah. And we could call it something different if network is too much of an adult word to use, but make friends and keep them.
Yeah. No, that's great parting advice. I know we're out of time, but I think we might do something where I just maybe invite a bunch of attorneys who want to give their feedback and their advice and their encouragement to folks who want to go to law school, right? And maybe we field some questions with that. So that's a whole topic. So just thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time this evening and for educating us. People, there's a list of things that we're supposed to be doing. We need to go to her website. We need to subscribe. We need to go get a T-shirt. She also sells pens. She didn't mention that. She also sells the Our Legacy
pens and masks. I'm making hoodies. Whatever people ask me for, I will try to do the best to make it, because at the end of the day, I want to get the message. It's the message that I want to get across. So look for it all. It's all coming. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for Justice Connection, which is freaking amazing. I just thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. You rock.
Thank you for being a part of Justice Connection, right? We are the first Black lawyer referral and legal resource platform, and we're building brick by brick, and each and every one of you is a part of this vision, right? I don't profess to know it all. We are all a part of this and building up for one another so that we can be not only educated, but empowered in the law.
Yes.
So this is us signing off for this week's Black Lawyer Roundtable. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Shari, girl, you're amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night.